It's time for good energy, and I'm Dr. Julie, and welcome to Bodyful Day 252. And this is the first day of our series on constipation and the senses. Yes, we are talking about poop. And today we're going to talk about the sense of hearing. Now, obviously I could talk about the sound of poop hitting the toilet, but as you all know, I usually take that first sense and I hijack it so that we can talk about how constipation is related to the healing equation and how we're going to use the senses to move things along. All right, let's start with the basics. Take a deep breath in and release. On this next deep breath in, you're going to expand in the belly, expand in the chest, expand in the sinuses, and tuck your tailbone ever so slightly. Deep breath in. And release. Now, we are talking about constipation in the senses, and we're talking about the sense of hearing. So, I want you to think about hearing the gurgling, if you have ever had this, the gurgling that goes on in your gut when you think you have to go, but you can't, and it feels like you have to go, and there's just a lot of noise. So, and not just you can hear it, everybody else. Go ahead and breathe into that. And release. All right. So we are talking about constipation, and constipation is a significant issue on multiple levels. It affects our nervous system, it affects our digestive system, it affects our microbiome. It gets back to that lovely little thing we call the gut-brain axis, and it affects our gut-brain axis because constipation is the slow of flow. The flow slows. And what happens, I remember hearing this for the very first time, probably about 15 years ago, and went, ew, gross. When you have constipation, the bad, quote unquote bad, because we have to have all sorts of variety of bacteria in our gut, the bad bacteria end up taking a lot of our really not very good, like the garbage that's supposed to come out in our poop, and recycle it and stick it back into us. And what they stick it back into us is as inflammatory fatty acids. And I'm like, that is not cool. So not going, not being regular, not having a consistent flow means that you end up with recycling the garbage that should go out through you. Somebody recycles it and sticks it back in you as inflammation. And that inflammation can lead not just to gut issues, but it can lead to weight gain, and it can lead to tension and shifting and being out of alignment in your pelvis, because your muscles sense all that inflammatory yuckiness and they don't want to have anything to do with it. And so they kind of back away. They don't hold together your pelvis and your lumbar spine the way they should. And so a lot of people who have chronic gut stuff also have chronic hip stuff. That is not a coincidence. That is because the gut is too close to the muscles that hold your pelvis and your low back together, and they are really pissed off of all the garbage that's sitting in your gut. So if we think about this from the healing equation is energy to clear your gut equals good energy and minus stressors. And our goal, of course, is to get as much good energy in, take away the stressors so that we can clear the blockage. Now, I created another hypothesis called the Eddy's hypothesis of energy. And part of the reason why we don't have enough energy to do things when we have constipation is that all of our energy gets kind of tied up in that eddy. You can think about a river flowing through, and when there's a blockage, when a tree falls in the river, the water starts to kind of spin and make an eddy. And that eddy collects energy. It also collects garbage. and it just sits there. And slowly over time, that eddy, because the garbage collects in there, will eventually spin out and drop down to the bottom. That eddy will slowly fill in, and the energy will stop flowing. That is the same thing that happens with constipation. With constipation, the energy that should just flow through our intestines ends up getting stuck in a particular location, circles around itself, and your body now takes up energy and says, I have to try to work on this to clear it. So that energy that could be used somewhere else is now used to kind of clear wherever you've got constipation. You got constipation out here? It's wherever you've got constipation. Your body is working on trying to clear that eddy, and eventually, if you don't clear it, garbage collects, the river doesn't flow there anymore, and you've got to find a different route. So we want to have flow. We want everything to keep moving through because we want the energy of the body to keep flowing at all times. So constipation is one of those things that we just got to find a way around. So we want to find a flow. We want to clear the eddies. We want to move things through. The other reason why we want to do this is that we know that we have more serotonin receptors, and more serotonin is released in our gut than in our brain. Serotonin is one of our feel-good neurotransmitters. And if you have constipation, you have parts of your gut that is not getting its serotonin. You've got garbage backed up. There's no serotonin receiving going on there, which means that you are also draining your mood. Your mood goes down. Serotonin goes down in the gut. Serotonin goes down in the body. So we've got to get you going literally get you going, so that you have more serotonin in your gut and you feel better. And so how do we do this? Well, for a lot of you who have chronic constipation, you may be using things like magnesium or Miralax or other drinks that help push things through. You might be using fiber to help push things through. The idea, of course, is to get through that blockage in one way or another. And each one of those, Miralax, magnesium, and fiber, use a different mechanism. And so one of the questions is, was that mechanism never functioning to begin with? Do you need that? Or is there something else going on? And now we venture into the world of food sensitivities or emotional holding tightness in various parts of the body, which then doesn't allow things to flow, so that we can look at, well, where can we move energy? How can we use our senses to move energy through the body? The last thing I want to point out is when we talked about cold hands, cold extremities, and the senses, we talked about the fact that there was a distinction between fight and flight and freeze. Now, what we know about the digestive system and the sympathetic nervous system is that when you go into a flight response, because you're running away, one of the first things that happens is your digestive system says, all right, let's drop it all. Let's drop trow and run. And that really is true. Your nervous system is set up to let things go out of the intestines so that they are clear, so that you can run efficiently. For those of us who have a freeze response to stress, guess what happens? If you have an emotional freeze response to stress, I'm not going to move, your intestines don't move either. So you've got to figure out a way to move those intestines, even if your sympathetic nervous system response is freeze. So now what do? We'll go through a couple of ways to activate that parasympathetic nervous system in helpful ways that allow you to heal, and helpful ways that allow you to move or to go with the flow. So what are we going to do with the sense of hearing and constipation? Well, one of the things we can talk about is learning the connection. So we've already talked about Pavlov's dogs. Pavlov's dogs learned that ringing a bell was related to food, so that instead of salivating with the food in front of them, they salivated with the ringing of the bell. Same thing can happen if we think about it in terms of going to the bathroom. So if you have a particular pattern that involves listening to the coffee maker go and reading a particular thing or listening to a particular piece of music, you can set up a pattern, a ritual as it were, to get the nervous system in the right place that it lets go of the garbage. So you can use sound, you just have to kind of use sound in a creative Pavlovian conditioning method. I am always going to go to the bathroom after I listen to da 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 da. And because when you do listen to that, you are in a relaxed state, then your body relaxes and says it's okay to go to the bathroom. Because we know one of the worst things for constipation is to get off your schedule. We can talk about Sheldon from The Big Bang Theory all we want. The man goes to the bathroom, I think it's at 7:20, between 7 o'clock and 7:20. That's his bathroom time. Consistency is the key. And so once we get off the consistent pattern, it is kind of hard for us to keep up with our regularity. So anyway, we're going to talk about how other senses can be used to help us get through constipation this week. I hope you join me on this conversation about poop. All right, let's finish it off. Take a deep breath in and release. I'll see you here tomorrow. Take care.